Welcome to Talk Art. I'm Sally Rain, and I'll be your host as we delve into the world of the artist and the art that's all around us. Talk Art is sponsored by the Silicon Valley Open Studios. During the first 3 weekends in May, hundreds of local artists open their studios to the public. For more information, you can go to the website svos.org. Our guest, Ruth-Anne Siegel, is an abstract painter, and her vibrant paintings are translations of memories of specific times and places that she creates using bold colors and gestural marks and layers of warm and cool colors on her beautiful canvases. So welcome, Ruth-Anne.
Thanks, Sally.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about how you became an artist. What is your education?
Well, I always wanted to be an artist, and when my father told me when I was about 10 years old that I could be a commercial artist, I said, that's what I'm going to be. So I went to the Rhode Island School of Design, and I studied graphic design, and I got a BFA in graphic design.
Well, excellent. And you have such beautiful paintings, and you say that they are created using memories.
Yes.
What memories influence them?
Well, many different ones. Sometimes I don't even realize what I'm painting until I'm finished, and I look at the painting and I say, oh, that was a memory of when I was 3 years old. Most of the time, I will try to think of something that will evoke a strong feeling, a strong emotion in me, and then I will go forward and paint. And sometimes I don't even realize what I'm painting. I think I'm painting one memory, and another one will pop up as I'm painting.
Well, interesting, and you recognize it as you go along?
Right, right. Sometimes, and sometimes not until I'm done and I step back.
Do they all have memories associated with them?
Most of my paintings, maybe not all, but most.
Most of them. Well, you brought some images that we want to take a look at, sort of to introduce the idea of how this works.
Okay. So this painting is part of a series that was influenced by a trip to Alaska. So I went on a hike alongside the Exit Glacier up to the Harding Ice Field, and there was very, very strong light. There was a lot of snow. The last mile or so was snow and strong sun. So when I came home, I didn't even realize it. I started to paint that hike. So this is one of those paintings.
Well, that's beautiful, the sunlight with the orange.
Thanks. And this is in the same series, again, that strong sunlight, the blue of the glacier.
Oh yeah, I can see that I really like the way you layer them. That's a very interesting technique. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I use many different tools to layer my paint, and I just see what happens. I'll put, you see there's some gray paint over there. I'll put the gray over the orange. I'll put blue over orange, white, and just keep layering and layering until I get what I want. So this painting was not influenced by the glacier, but it was influenced by mandarin oranges, hence the name.
Mandarin oranges.
Yes.
Wow. And so when you're thinking about circles like that, do you plan that in advance? How do you sketch a painting?
I usually don't sketch. I usually paint directly onto the painting. Sometimes I will work out colors or work out material ahead of time, but most of the time I just paint directly onto the canvas. This particular painting was influenced by a photograph I had of mandarin oranges spilling out of a bowl, but I wanted to change the composition a little bit, and I also wanted to bring in kind of this celestial feeling as well.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. This is a painting that's part of a commission that I did. So this is Day, and the other painting is going to follow, and it's called Night Comes. And this painting was really fun to paint. It's just such strong colors and layering on top of one another. It just flowed out of me.
Wow, I really like the side where the greens with the very dark magenta and purples. That's really beautiful.
Thanks, thanks. And this next painting was the second part of the commission, and this was quite a challenge. The original painting that I had done, I overworked. I painted over and over and over, and it was way too realistic for what the clients wanted. And so I just decided to cut my losses, and I started all over again, and then I came up with this one, and they were thrilled. They were really thrilled with both paintings.
So what was your strategy for this one?
I had done so much work on that original one that I had already done all the thinking I needed to do, so I just painted it with joy and didn't worry about it so much, and it came out so much better.
Definitely, I can see the joyful colors. That's beautiful. I really like the colors that you choose.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how the memories work. When did that start? How did you know that all of a sudden, oh, I'm painting memories?
So I took a painting class when I was in college that was called Experimental Watercolors, and it was a fabulous teacher, and we just painted 2.5 days a week and painted and painted and painted. And at the end of the class, we had a critique of about 25 paintings. And my last few paintings for this class were very large, full watercolor sheets of paper. And during the critique, I noticed as the teacher was talking about my work, I said, "That's the inside of the tree." And he said, "What do you mean that's the inside of the tree?" And I said, "I painted a memory of when I was 3 years old. My brother had read me a book about elves in a tree, and they never showed the inside of the tree in this book, this illustrated book. But I had this, I imagined what the inside of the tree would look like. And then I painted it without even knowing that I was painting it until the critique."
Saw it. Wow. Right. And that was the first time you went, oh, I'm painting memories.
That's right.
And then did you intentionally decide, oh, that's what I want to paint, or memories, or did it evolve?
It evolved. Because like I said earlier, I didn't realize I was even painting memories until after I was done with quite a few paintings. Then I did make some deliberate memory paintings. I tried to think back on a happy time in my life or certain periods of time in my life, and I tried to paint those particular memories.
So when did you make the transition to acrylics then, or when did you start?
I've been painting I painted with acrylics in high school, and in my recent life, I painted with watercolors, and then I moved on to collage and then to acrylics. I also paint with oils as well.
Yeah, because your acrylic paintings have a very watercolor influence, and to my eye anyway.
Yeah, I could see that.
So you brought some more images that are definitely linked to memories of your childhood. So let's take a look at those now.
Okay. So this next group of paintings are from a series I call Memories of the Bridge. So I grew up outside of New York City, and we used to go into New York City all the time. And we would go via the 59th Street Bridge, and to get there, we'd have to go on a street called Van Dam, which is the name of this painting. And when I was a kid, Van Dam Street still had cobblestones. So this is a collage, and the bottom of the painting is highly textured, like you were driving over cobblestones.
It's beautiful. It looks like the haze and the fog in the background. Is there a specific time of day that you remember, or?
On this painting, I don't think I was doing a specific time. I just was, maybe the haze of memory was influencing this one.
It was beautiful.
Thank you. So this painting is called Queens, and the 59th Street Bridge starts in Queens and goes over to Manhattan. So there was a lot of red in the surrounding buildings, not so much the light, but there was a Silver Cup Studios. There used to be Silver Cup bread factory, and so that sign's in red, and so that was definitely based on a memory of going over the bridge.
Also looks like there's a lot of motion in that, so as you're driving across the bridge.
Right.
Smeared. Beautiful. Yeah, I can see it.
And this one is actually acrylic and oil, and it's a cityscape with lots of texture.
So why pink with a very dark blue?
On that particular one, I just wanted to try a different color and played around with it a little bit, and did a lot of experimenting with the oil and with dripping the mineral spirits over the oil to get the drips and to kind of get the background, which I had done in acrylic, to show through.
Interesting. It worked.
When we drove over the bridge. So again, a memory of driving over the bridge.
Great. Well, you brought some demonstration, some tools, and you can do a demonstration for us?
Yes. So I like to use a range of tools. So starting with cotton rag, which is an old sheet, and paper towels, as well as artist materials like an ink brayer, but I use it with paint, where I'll apply the paint like I would ink, but I'll put it on a canvas instead of on a plate, a printing plate. I also like to use brushes. So this is a mural size brush, which I like to use big brushes.
Wow, this is great. These are for the bigger canvases?
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes I use them on smaller canvases. It just depends. I also like big, cheap brushes. This is a big, cheap, well-loved brush.
Is there any particular reason why cheap is important?
Well, cheap you can really, you can just really abuse, and you have a lot of fun with it. You don't worry about it as much. So that's why I like using cheap brushes, but I also use fine artist brushes as well, which cost way too much. So I like to use that as well. But my favorite tools are tools from the hardware store. So here I have putty knives and a foam roller, which is used for trim work for house painters. So I will do a demo using that. So
these are acrylic paints that
Right.
you're going to be working with. Okay.
Exactly. So I will put out a line of paint.
So you have a background already painted.
Right. I like to paint on what some people might call unsuccessful paintings. I like to call underpaintings. So not every painting is a masterpiece. So if you put it aside, you can then cover it again, and you are not starting from scratch, which is always really helpful.
And what is this?
So this is acrylic medium, and I like to use a lot of acrylic medium.
That's a lot, yes. So it's a matte medium.
Right. And so this is pre-moistened, and I'm just going to roll it through the paint and the medium together. And then, as you can see, it doesn't cover opaquely. It has some translucent areas, and it also gets a texture from the foam from the roller. So you still get the background, you still get this history of what came before, but then you get this great color on top. And then when I use the putty knives, it's almost like a palette knife, but it's a little bit bolder. And that I don't usually use that much medium with, because you need a lot of paint when you use a putty knife.
So is this like a middle layer that you're painting, and then you would create more painting on top of this as well?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. That
depends on what happens, I guess.
Depends on what happens.
What memory arises.
Exactly.
That's really thick that you can just...
And it's really fun. So I like to use that towards the end of a painting, because it really, really does cover quite opaquely.
And then, okay, what happens next?
So I would let that dry, and then I would either paint over it, or I would say, oh, that's good, and let it go. So that's the hardest thing for me to do, is to stop, is to say, that's good, I'm done, I'm leaving it.
Painting
I always
is
want
done.
to paint some more.
So the painting itself doesn't say, I'm done. Some artists think they see it and they say, okay, all of a sudden it's done.
That does happen, but not as often as I would like. Most of the time I have to decide if it's done.
Okay.
And this is definitely not done. But
Right. Okay, well, you brought another series of paintings that I'd love to take a look at.
Okay. Right, that is, this is a series called Growth, Grief, and I went through a lot of transitions in my life, and I was painting those transitions.
So grief, this one, where do you see the grief in it?
This one does not have grief. This one is more growth.
Okay, this one's the growth one.
Yes, this one's a very actually happy painting.
Most of them seem to be happy.
This one's called So Far Away, and this was about actually my son going off to college. So
tell me a little bit about that. You have layers of paint, and you have these darker colors that seem to be showing through. Tell us about your thought processes.
So on this one, I started off with a big tube of red paint and the ink brayer. And I just started rolling the paint thickly on the canvas. And I don't usually, at that time I wasn't really painting that much with red, so that's why I had a big tube of it. So I just kind of started playing with that red color and then using yellow and blues, and I had got this landscape, this abstract landscape going on where it was something in the distance.
So did you mix the colors on the canvas?
I did. On
Leave
this
it wet?
particular one,
That's
I did
interesting.
mix the colors on the canvas. I put the paint on very thickly and mixed it directly onto the canvas.
And where do you see your son going off to college?
Well,
do
he's
you
in
actually
Michigan,
see
so.
it, or is it?
No, it was more the emotion, the emotional feeling of my son being far away, and I was watching him kind of go off, maybe into the sunset.
Into the sunset or the distant mountains?
Into the distance,
yeah,
exactly.
I can see that one
exactly.
definitely draws you back into that yellow space behind the mountains.
Right.
Very nice.
Thank you. This one's called Wayfarer, and I felt like he was going on this adventure on his way, and so that's what this painting was about. And again, a lot of layering of warm and cool. You can see the blues on top of the oranges, and I also used the tip of my paintbrush, the wooden tip, the wooden end of the paintbrush, not the bristle end, but the other end. And I like to also draw into my paintings with that end of the paintbrush. So I did that quite a bit in that painting.
So you call those gestural marks?
Right, right.
So, yeah, tell us a little bit about the warm and cool. How do you balance those? They seem quite balanced in all of your paintings. Do you intentionally do that, or as you go, you see it happening?
I think I just naturally gravitate towards that balance and having that contrast in there of warm and cool. It really shows, it really sets each other off. The cool colors make the warm colors look warmer and vice versa. And it just really shows an emotional interaction with the warm and cool together. I think it makes for a much more vibrant and exciting painting.
Is there a particular color that you like to use a lot?
I love orange. I use orange a lot. This painting, again, was about my son going off to college. I call it Alone at Home, although I'm not alone. I have other children, but I just felt like it really showed the emotion I was feeling at the time, that he was leaving the nest, and kind of that single figure, although it's not really a figure there, that white shape is kind of like that single figure walking off.
So this one does seem a bit darker. The white is very stark, and there's dark. Do you associate any colors with particular emotions, or?
Oh, well, usually I do paint with darker colors when I want to evoke a sadder or a more introspective memory. And then I will use warmer and brighter colors, usually for a happier one. But I like to have both, basically, because you can't have the warm without the cool, and you can't have the happy without a little bit of the sad.
So was this one of the paintings that you had a memory that you wanted to evoke and you knew that that was going to be coming, or is this one of the ones that surprised you, said, oh, that's what that is?
This was more of a feeling, an emotion, more than a memory.
Okay.
It was kind of how I was feeling at the time.
And you knew
the transition.
And you knew that was going to be the painting, what it was going to be about?
I don't think I did. It was after I finished the painting that I stepped back from it and said, oh, I painted this feeling, this emotion I was having at the time.
Well, it's beautiful. Your
Thank
paintings are so vibrant and beautiful.
Thank you.
So you evoke feelings and you evoke memories, and in your paintings there's a contact that is not quite conscious, it seems.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts about how you do that, or what you're trying to create with your paintings?
Well, I just try to be really authentic. I try to paint what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking about, what I want to remember. I don't try to paint something that someone else will like. I really try to be true to myself and to paint something that I can emotionally connect with. So when someone sees one of my paintings, they'll may not know what the memory is. I mean, they won't be able to see
Right.
what I was thinking about. Although some of my paintings about New York do have some cityscapes in it, but most of the time one would not see Alaska in my paintings or a glacier, but there is an authenticity. There is a realness to it
Right.
that comes from deep within myself. I am showing my true self when I do paint those paintings.
Oh, excellent. So, what are some of your influences? You know, artistic influences. Are there artists that you have studied that inform your art?
Yes, I have taken many classes with a local painter named Katie Hawkinson, and I love her work, and she's an amazing teacher. I also love a lot of the masters, Richard Diebenkorn.
Oh, I can see that in your paintings.
Yeah, I love his juicy paint. Milton Avery, his paintings were just so simply beautiful, and I wish I could paint as simply as he did, but I just can't. But I love his paintings. Wolf Kahn is another painter that I really admire.
Well, excellent. And do you have any venues that people can see your art at?
Yes, I am part of Gallery House, which is in Palo Alto on California Avenue, and as well as the Silicon Valley Open Studios, which I do every year.
Oh, excellent. So what are some of the benefits of being part of the Silicon Valley Open Studios, do you think?
So many, so many. It's a fabulous way to show your work, not only to your friends who come to see your work, but to people all over the Bay Area who come. I've met really, really interesting people. Many people find me in the catalog, the Silicon Valley Open Studio catalog,
Right.
and they find me that way. I've made great friends. I've shown with different groups of artists, and I've made really, really wonderful friends. And it's just a really, really fun weekend or
Yes.
weekends
Right.
to show your work with other artists. And you're part of this great community in the Bay Area too, because there are so many of us, and it's a wonderful opportunity.
Oh, it definitely is. I totally agree. So you have such beautiful abstract paintings, and I can see that you really have beauty as a goal in your paintings, and they're very colorful, which isn't typical in the art world today. What do you think you'll be painting in the future? Do you have any goals for yourself that you would like to paint?
That's a really interesting question. I just want to keep challenging myself. I just really want to, like I said before, paint authentically, but then also really push my limits as an artist. Because once you get comfortable, one's paintings don't have the life in them. If you have a little challenge, if you have to push it and you have to reevaluate and redo areas, or you have to really think through what you're going to do, it shows in the work. The work
Right.
really becomes a lot more interesting, and that's what I'm.
So
what I definitely wanna try
where
to
in
do.
your work do you go through that process of challenging yourself? Is it with the color choices that you do, or the types of layering that you're working on? Why don't you expand a little bit about that? You know,
Well,
where is it?
there's challenges all through the process. Sometimes in the beginning, it's just really fun to just put the paint on the canvas and just see where it goes. But then there's always that point where you go, it's not done, and I don't know where to go next. And so that pivot point, you could either sometimes do a great painting, or sometimes you do what I was calling before an underpainting, and you have to put it aside. But it's always that challenge, because you put the paint somewhere and it sometimes doesn't do what you want it to, and so
Right.
you just have to keep sometimes you fight with it and sometimes you get along really well with it.
Right,
So,
and abstract painting, there's not always a particular goal. You can't compare it to the image
right.
that you see as in realistic paintings. I've seen some beautiful, perfect realistic paintings. You go, oh yeah, that's done. But in abstraction, it's different, and
Exactly.
it's more of an internal process, I think. So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah. So, do you think you would ever create more specific, realistic, like go more in the realistic realm, or
Well,
do you want to stay more abstract?
I like staying abstract, but I do have quite a few paintings that are more representational. Usually when I paint with oil, for some reason, I paint more representational. I had a commission for bell peppers, so I painted a large painting with big bell peppers in it. But there's a lot of abstraction in representational as well.
Oh yes, of course.
And
especially big
bell peppers. And also, when you really look, when I still do many sketches of, just for myself, not for actual paintings, of things, of real things,
Right.
of peppers, of landscapes, of portraits, and it trains your eye, and then
Right.
those representational shapes and colors will make their way into my abstract paintings. So it's always
interesting.
really fun to do those kinds of paintings, also those representational, because it's like you said, you just look at the image, you look at the photograph, or you look at the still life, and it's all there. It's not all in here.
Right. So you don't sketch on the canvas, but you
Right.
sketch consistently so that the representational parts that you want to show in your memory are come through in the abstract. Is that a good
Yeah,
summary?
that's a good way, sure. And it just also
Yeah.
keeps my skill up. It keeps trains my eye.
Well, excellent. Well, it's been a real pleasure
Yes.
to talk to you, and your colors are so beautiful. Yeah, I really admire. I paint with color myself, so I think they're beautiful.
Thank you, Sally. This
Thank
has been
you
great.
so much for being on Talk Art, and thank
Thank
you
you.
for watching.